if you can make them view the world as a place full of nasty villains that the common folk are powerless to stop, they will throw power at you left and right. You won't have to beg for it. They'll be knocking on your door, throwing it at you left and right. Left and right. Speaking of divide and conquer, when your grip tightens, when you have control over more of their lives, when you're taking more of their money, controlling more of their behaviors, some of them will start to notice and they'll start to complain. Don't worry. Use it as one more thing that you will pose as the solution for it. Now, you can't go out there and say, I will save you from me. This is where you bring in puppets. The government is corrupt and inefficient and does bad things. We need lower taxes, less regulation, more freedom. You bring out a puppet to rail against your agenda. A warrior for the common man, fighting against the corrupt establishment. Of course, he won't do anything to reduce all the things he complains about. He will serve as a distraction. When you have pushed to the limit as far as you can in one direction, until the peasants out there start to complain, that's when you bring in the puppet, who will criticize you. We're giving away billions of dollars to illegal immigrants. And all sorts of pork projects and unnecessary welfare schemes. We need lower taxes, less regulation, more freedom. When the puppet has their support as their champion, then comes the bait and switch. What we should be spending money on is a stronger defense. There are scary communists and terrorists and criminals everywhere. We need more prisons, more police, close the borders, bigger military, war on drugs. He will vehemently complain, your puppet, about what you've been doing in one direction. But when he comes along, he isn't going to back that up. He will advocate that your power grow in a different direction and leave right where it is the advances you already made in the first direction. And then you push, and you push, and you push, until the peasants get upset. Then you bring in the other puppet. Look at all the bad things government is doing. Unnecessary wars, they're condoning torture. There's oppression all over the place. They're spying on Americans, stomping on civil rights, left and right. Enough is enough. We need new ideas. We need new leaders. We need a new direction. We need change. And the stupid peasants out there are going to cheer who they imagine to be their new champion. But he won't reduce the power you grabbed in this direction. They'll grow it in a new direction. Taxes, regulation, nationalizing this and socializing that. We need free healthcare and free money for banks and car companies. We should tax the evil rich and give to the needy, and we need gun control and more regulation of industry and more government programs for blah, 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 blah. Until the people tire of that. Then you bring in a new puppet and you push in a new direction. When they complain, push in the other direction. When they complain, you push in the other direction until you have it all. Until you control every aspect of their lives. Now the beauty of this charade, the beauty of that these puppets, the power these puppets give you that you cannot do yourself, is that they give you perpetual power because they give the peasants the illusion of choice. They will forever be throwing their efforts into looking at your two puppets and trying to choose which should be their new leader. You have to constantly stress the importance of the right to vote. You have to make democracy the new religion. Of course, you control the choices. You make the puppets. It doesn't make any difference which one they vote for. But that illusion is so important, because the illusion that they have some say in what happens to them is what will keep them from revolting. Even when you have complete power, when you control everything, every piece of property, every activity, when you monitor and regulate everything they do, when you can do as you please, you can crush dissent, when you have the world reduced to a giant plantation of your own personal slaves, still the peasants will think that they are in charge, and they will think that they chose their leaders. Constantly pit the peasants against each other. Divide and conquer, divide and conquer, divide and conquer. You want half supporting one puppet, about half supporting the other puppet. You have to keep it even. Both so you can change puppets to make your progress, but also so the peasants have the illusion that they can change things. Of course, you're always in charge, but they're not going to understand that. Study history if you want to see how it's done. If you watch how the Democratic and Republican parties will drift right and left to keep the balance the same. Democrats drift right when they need more votes. After Reagan, Republicans drifted left because they needed fewer votes. You have to keep the seesaw balanced. It has to be a fairly close race for the peasants to keep falling for the democracy scam. If the seesaw starts tipped too far in one direction, get your propagandists and the media out there pushing it back the other way. Since the 80s, it's taken some major left-leaning propaganda to try to tip back from what Reagan did. Even Reagan, now there's a puppet who almost got away from us. Even Reagan, we managed to hijack that and push it into power. War on drugs, bigger military. Be adaptable. You can take any politician. Half the time your puppets won't even know they're puppets. You can still pull their strings. The money, the influence, the committee assignments. It's easy to make them your puppets even if they don't know it. Whatever they believe, you can find some way in which they will increase your power. And then after Reagan, we managed to hand it back to more leftist puppets, then back and forth. Whatever the peasants' concerns, you have to find a way to make power for you. Whatever they want, tell them you and only you can give it to them if they'll just give you money and power. Whatever they're scared of, tell them that only you can protect them from that if they'll just give you money and power. You also have to constantly tell them that they can't solve any problems themselves. Tell them that people being free is what caused all these problems, and that only your wise, compassionate management can save them. And they will beg you to enslave them. They will demand to be oppressed. And funniest of all, they'll still call it freedom. Through the scam of democracy, you'll have the peasants fighting amongst themselves. They'll never regain a bit of freedom. You control the puppets. Doesn't matter which one they choose. Their imagined power to choose is a complete facade. All they're choosing is which foot you're moving forward any given day. But if they believe they have some influence, if they believe that the system has some checks and balances built in, has some built-in means of expressing the public will, they will never resist. Not only won't they revolt, they won't even disobey passively. They'll do as they're told, they'll send you their money, they'll obey your commands, and they'll constantly bash their heads against the wall of the system, trying to get freedom. And hilariously, they will actually believe that they are in charge. They will truly believe that they chose the puppets. They will imagine that your puppets represent them and work for them.